Welcome to another episode of the School of Weird. And no one I know is quite weirder than Britt Frank. Britt, welcome to the show.
That's the best intro I've ever had. Thanks for having me, friends, fellow weirdo.
Listen, you put the weird in Love Your Weird. I mean, you just do. And, you know this, and some of my people that tune in, they know this, that weird for us doesn't always have the same meaning as everyone else. We use the old English weird, W-Y-R-D, and the only reason Love Your Weird isn't Love Your W-Y-R-D is because no one knows what the heck that is. And so you can't really put it in the branding because they're like, wired? Like, what is this? So I had to go with Love Your Weird. But the truth is, weird for us goes way deeper than just being quirky and being yourself and having piercings and looking in a certain way. Because we all know that you don't have to look weird to love your weird.
Oh, I love it. And we all know that normal does not mean optimal or good or healthy or desirable.
No. And the irony around that is like everybody wants their competitive advantage. They all want to be unique and stand out, but nobody wants to love their weird. But once you do, something magical happens. And so for us, weird means the power to control or influence your fate, destiny, and my personal favorite, supernatural qualities, which was the original weird. Don't look to find it in the dictionary. You got to find one of these old English books. The only place you're going to find weird, Google can do it too, but I prefer the old English books. And so anyway, so weird, it's basically our genius. This is something that I've been really exploring lately, is this idea of what's the missing magic component in this world right now, this new world of work that you and I have talked about, that you are a proud founding member of this movement, the New World of Work, more to come there. It's about harnessing the collective genius of all the people that are already in the room, the people already in the organization. There's this mad obsession with trying to find all the right talent that's not in the room. And so many times it's right underneath our nose. It's right there. And the work and the investment is bringing out that collective genius from within, as opposed to putting all of this energy into trying to find some collective genius from without.
Can we talk about genius for a second? Can we talk about genius?
So
let's talk about genius for a second. Okay. So the thing with genius, when we think about it, it's the 4-year-olds who can play Beethoven, or it's the 12-year-olds who can get Olympic gold. But one of the oldest terms, genius, wasn't something that you either were or weren't. It was something that you had. It's sort of like having a creative muse. So it's not, are you a genius? It's, do you have your genius? And in our work world's language, it's, do you have access to your genius? Let's start with the assumption that everybody has a genius who can inspire, call it whatever you want. Call it a genius, call it a muse, call it a spidey sense. Doesn't matter. We all have it.
I love it.
I love that.
Let's stick with genius because that's what I call it.
Exactly. Because once you're in that flow state, once you're in that, you don't have to try to do it. You don't have to try to access it. So it's not like you're not it's everyone has a genius. Do you have an open access path to it? And we all get in our own ways and get stuck. And really, stuckness is just about blocking an access path to your genius that we all have. Boom. That's it. Mic drop.
Thank you so much, Britt, for being on the show. No, just kidding. All right, we're going to keep going. That's too good. Britt, you know, Britt and I are sisters and brother. I'm not a sister. She's the sister, but, but however you identify. But, this is a long time coming for those of you who don't know, if you haven't figured that out by now. Britt isn't just like any other guest. She's a dear, dear friend. And we have been going back and forth forever. She just put out, by the way, Getting Unstuck workbook, which is one of many works that she's doing. So exciting. You're an avid writer and dedicated to the science of getting unstuck, which I love. And it's such a critical thing. So, I talk about this idea of limitless growth from a business setting quite often. And I come from that expertise and background. But the truth is that most of the time, these models for like hijacking the S-curve or unlocking growth, they're just not possible without this powerful energy source to fuel it. And as I've done the work over the last over 2 decades, both in my own companies and with other organizations, I've realized this is critical. You will not have continuous growth. You might have spikes, but you will not have continuous growth unless you are harnessing that collective genius.
And to demystify it and take it out of the woo realm, which I love a good
Yeah, I
woo
know you
realm.
love the woo realm. And listen,
Like
you're welcome to stay in the woo realm. This is the school of weird. Like, we make the
well,
rules. Your choice.
what's great about the woo realm, and I love what you said about supernatural, is just stuff that science hasn't been able to explain today. But the things that we
Yes.
know and take for granted today, airplanes, cars, all of the innovations and inventions
Yes.
were once considered magical. So if we're
That's right.
talking about this magical, creative, weird genius force, let's bring it
Yeah.
down into, what does science know? Science knows that brains don't like change. Brains don't like change. If we're not factoring in the hardwiring that we're walking into a new initiative with, to a new whatever with, and we're not factoring in the known science, brains like survival, not success. Brains like patterns, not productivity. We need to know how our brains are working. The new world of work doesn't work without knowing how brains work, period.
That's it. And the fact is that, that information is so critical, and so few of us, myself included, don't really understand the science of it. And that's what I love about the work you're doing. And it's incredible, the value that just knowing that can help with break down some of the barriers. I think a lot of times we've labeled some of these things that a certain way because we just don't understand them, and it's really hurting, um, not just the organization and the growth there, but people inside of it. And that's one of the hardest parts. And I think we try to solve these surface level things like, where do you work, or what are the benefits, or all these surface level things, when we really could solve it at the core. Tell me a little bit about, like, some of the work you've been doing lately with, whether it be speaking or one-on-one around that.
The thing that I hear the most from everybody, and this is well outside the therapy room, this is the suicidal high
Mm,
schooler, but this is also the global CEO. This is the same question from 6-year-olds and 60-year-olds. It's pretty wild and weird to know it's the same question for everyone. And over
yes.
10,000 hours clocked in the therapist chair, I have heard the same question. And the question is this: why is it that part of me knows exactly what needs to happen? This is not a lack of information. I mean, I was a drug addict. It's not like I did not know meth is bad. It wasn't a lack of information. Part of me knows what to do. Part of me knows what the company needs. Part of me knows what the people need. Part of me knows what I need. This other part of me seems to take over. And an entire industry has been built out of calling it the saboteurs, calling it whatever you want, all of the ways
Wow.
in which the things that we know and the things that we do have a gap a mile wide. Once we close the gap, motivation takes care of itself. Work-life balance takes care of itself. We don't need to
Right.
solve for those things. We need to solve for this gap between what we know and what we do. And there is science to explain how to close that gap, none of which has anything to do with motivation or thinking positive or doing a deep dive feelings journey into your childhood, thank goodness. We
Yeah.
don't need
Or
to do any
even,
of that
like,
stuff.
wait, what about meditation? I can't do anything without meditation, right?
I don't meditate
Yeah.
personally. I'm not anti-meditation, but meditation in the way you think of. I don't ever sit and take deep breaths and clear my mind and do those things because that doesn't work for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of people,
Yeah.
particularly type A people who feel guilty that they can't do it. I don't do
I suck at it. I basically just brought down the definition of meditation and widened it, infinitely wide. And basically, if I'm just thinking about something or reading something or listening, like, that's my meditation. Like, as far as, like, going into a place of empty thoughts. And it's funny because, like, tomorrow my a completely different philosophy drops, called intentionality, which is not completely different, but kind of. It's like very heavy into meditation. Our friend Finney and Kelly goes live tomorrow, so I'm here for all of it, as you are too, right? But it's nice to name that. So, like, if you're out there listening, and my session with Finney doesn't relate, there is an alternative option. That's this session here with Britt. So if you feel like you can't meditate too good, congratulations, you have two friends now. And yeah, because I think at the end of the day, like, we want to kind of overplay that. And look, there's a reason why meditation, take a deep breath, go for a walk, and all that is, like, hot right now, because, like, it's easy to do and everybody can do it. So, and stuff like that always becomes hot because it's not the deeper work. And again, nothing against it, but the deeper work that you're talking about it is critical, because you're right. I've always found that if you fix the root cause of things, these other things become a byproduct. Like growth, I think about growth all the time from a standpoint of like, you mentioned science and the things we can understand. And maybe some scientists understand what I'm about to say, but I don't understand it, which is, how does a tree grow? Okay, now condition wise, and this is where it becomes important, like we have to create the conditions. Either I have to create my own conditions, or we have to create a culture that creates conditions. But if the conditions are right, water, sunlight, seeds, nurturing, pruning, all the other things that you do, a tree will grow. But there's this invisible force that makes the tree grow that I don't actually understand, right? But we
And you don't
believe
need
in it.
to.
Yeah, but we
You
believe
don't
in it.
need to.
That's
Right.
We believe in it. I mean, I don't know exactly how these lights are on. There's some invisible thing, and I do know that if you flip the switch, the lights come on. And I think sometimes it's like, there's this balance of like understanding how it works as much as I need to just know at the end of the day I need to flip the switch.
And this is my hot take on the start with why and the choose your why, and I love the break your why. All of the why, and again, I'm not anti any ideological or like, do you? It's all like a buffet, and all of the dishes are useful. Okay, so all that said, when we focus on the why is this tree, why is it growing, or why is it not growing, we're not looking at, like, we can sit here and analyze the tree all day. I can analyze your family all day. It's my entire career is built on that. But until we change the soil and we change the conditions, whether or not we answer the why is not going to matter. You can answer the why am I stuck, and now you're just going to be more insightfully stuck. We need to not ask why, but we need to ask what. What are the actions? And if 100%. We're not doing them, what are the actions that we can? Sustained growth happens through action, not analysis or insight. And I'm a therapist saying that.
Yeah, boom. And I always love that. You always surprise me just when I'll start reading one of your memes or something, and I'm thinking I know where she's going with this. And then you flip it. And I'm like, oh, okay, that was interesting. And I love that kind of stuff, because we've all just adopted and just kind of believe some of these slogans or sayings that are out there, or chants or prayers or whatever. And it's like, they're not all correct. And there's context to probably whoever wrote it. And I bet if you ask the person who wrote it that's long past, even they would tell you that. Like, oh, I don't even agree with that anymore.
Exactly. That's all it meant.
A whole generation living by like some slogan.
Well, especially and again, I'm not motivation is awesome. Motivation is great. But like you said, motivation is the byproduct of creating conditions for sustained growth. And one of those, and this is something you and I have talked about at length, is, and okay, my disclaimer here is I realize that it takes a degree of privilege and safety and access to even be having the conversation that I'm about to dive into. So assuming we've solved for safety, if we haven't, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. I agree. And I'm glad that you're denoting that. And so this next part of the conversation, for those of you listening and watching, is assuming that we're in a psychologically safe environment, because that has to happen first. No question. Go.
Correct. With access, some of the things that we need. Okay. So when we're talking about motivation and innovation and all of the access to genius, what we're really talking about is alignment. The solution to burnout is not work less, it's align more. Because when you are in alignment with your values and what is true for you, not what you think should be true for you, the shoulds, the shoulds, oughts, and musts have to go. Once we're aligned, easier said than done, but and this is what I talk about. Once we're aligned, that stuff becomes the tree that grows in the good soil once it's watered.
Right. The alignment is the conditions, 100%. And I'm a huge fan of the word alignment. A lot of times I'm speaking about like the alignment as far as the collective, and aligning and starting to collaborate without boundaries, and being aligned on the problem we're going to solve, and aligned on the solution that we've imagined. So alignment is huge, both as a collective. But the alignment you're talking about is when you can, you need to do that. We need to align as a collective. But when a collective of people are aligned individually and then aligned collective, that's when like there is an unstoppable force.
Exactly. And for leaders to know what is the alignment of your people, because they're all, and you don't need to be a therapist or to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on questionnaires. And I mean, again, those things are great if you want to do it, have at it. But knowing just a few things about what's important to me is not going to be what's important to you. And
Yes.
if you're speaking to what's important to me, you don't need to motivate me and you don't need to keep me happy. If I am in alignment and you are speaking to that alignment, then, and again, it's less work with more reward. You don't need to figure out my alignment. That's my job. I
Right.
need to know, hey, I need to know that my best meetings, my most productive meetings that I can do twice the stuff and half the time can't happen on Monday morning because that's just not how I'm aligned. That's not true for
100%.
me.
100%.
But
Yeah. I'm the
when
same way.
you
Like I have
know,
certain times a
yes,
day. Like
yes,
right now it's 12:30 Central Time. Like for me, it's normally if it wasn't you, this wouldn't be a great time for me to do this because I'm just
same.
better in the mornings. But with you, you're like a shot of well, cocaine, really. But I was gonna say espresso. You're more like a shot of cocaine, which fucking I'm here for it. But uh obviously everyone on the call knows that I am actually sober, but a guy can fantasize. So, the biggest thing is that this alignment, wow. It's so I talk a lot about this idea that it's really hard to come together as a collective because so many people are wearing masks. So what happens is like it's this like self-fulfilling prophecy. So if everybody's wearing a mask, even if everybody cares, and everybody's trying to be empathetic and loving, they're being empathetic and loving to whatever you've shown. So it's not going to have that deep impact. So it's really wild. And I think the thing about masks is that after they're on for a minute, you forget they're on. And so I
Mhm.
think most people, the hardest thing is that you really don't realize you even have the mask on. I don't think people wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, let me put this mask on, you know, but it happens organically because you're like, oh, I, okay, let's see real quick. I got my work mask. I got my husband mask. Got my kid mask. I got my mask for my friends. So I just, oh, where am I headed? Okay, let me grab this. I'll just put that on. And it's almost like, a set of keys or a hat or something. And again, we just kind of subconsciously are grabbing these masks and putting them on
Mhm.
because what we're doing is we're just over indicating or indexing on aligning with other people. I've over
Yes.
indexed on that, and I've done that for years. In fact, that's where Love Your Weird came from because I'd gotten so good at aligning myself with whoever was in front of me in whatever room, like so good at it, so fast, and I'm the man at it until I
It
broke.
And in the new world of work, the trend of sort of overshooting the mark. So we've over indexed on alignment with other people because we want to have belonging and this sense of connection. But another hot take from the
Oh
therapist,
yeah, here we go.
we've over
Belonging
indexed
and
on
meditation. That's all the world needs.
we've also over indexed on empathy and vulnerability in the workplace.
Yep.
Hear me out. I will explain. I'm not saying be fake and be a stone. I am saying from a neuroscience perspective,
Mm,
when people are in their feelings and spewing stories, it's not only not helpful, it's completely counterproductive and harmful, not to them, not just to them, but to everybody else around them. And
mm.
so if you feel like as a good leader, your job is to have someone vomiting and just dumping all of what's going on, and now you have to extend empathy, and now you're burnt out on your own stuff, now you have to hold all of these feelings for the other person. Empathy and vulnerability are not the ticket. Giving containment and conditions, and one of the conditions is trusting that work is not a place where everyone's dumping their feelings. That is such a hot take right now, but I relish in the fact that work is largely, we want it to be human, we want it to be weird, but we don't want work to become a giant therapy session. And somehow that has become the trend. It's not
Mm.
helpful. It's not helpful. It's not.
Britt, you're dropping all kinds of bombs here. You got to warn me on this. Okay,
I'm gonna get in
so yeah,
trouble.
this is big stuff. Like this is before it's time type stuff here, Britt. Um, and of course I'm here for it. What's wild is so I'm a huge advocate for this thing I call the limitless drug. Right? It's this idea of like that. I just love that dopamine hit and whatever other thing happens in your brain, the helper's high when I help someone unconditionally. It's like a proven thing, right? But what I found that makes my hits so good is that there are guardrails. I've been really thinking about the guardrails lately
Say
because
more.
so I help if certain conditions are there, I will help all the way to death. Like I will help and help and help, and I will love it. And you don't have to give me anything. Like if the conditions are there, but I'm starting to realize and name these conditions for people because I keep talking about this limitless drug, and some people have been coming back to me and they're like, hey, I've helped some people and like I didn't feel that good about it, or like I have a whole group of people that I've worked with around the codependency space that they are in the position they're in because they help too much. And so here we are. But it doesn't change the fact that like that gold of the human experience of love and unconditional help and all that, it's real and you have to have it. However, there's certain components. So what I found was these are a couple simple guardrails I use. Let me know what you think. First of all, I only help people that asked for my help. Number one. That's a big one. And that person not only asked for my help, but they asked for my help because they believe I have something that they want. Something inside, not monies and stuff. So that's the first part. The second part is that when I help them, it's very specific. Like if I'm going to help a speaker, like because I help a lot of speakers now. Like I probably help 6 or 8 a week, and a lot of what I'm doing with them is that I'm giving them a very specific thing. Part of that is just a mirror of like the conviction that I know they have around this, and just mirroring back to them this energy that you're exactly where you're supposed to be and you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and don't flinch. Right. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. And then, so I think about the work I do with alcoholics and drug addicts. Like I'm very specific. Like I've helped 300 different alcoholics and drug addicts over the last years, and not one of them has paid me. Right. But I've also not paid them. And not one of them have I slept at their house? I don't think so. But let me think about that. But none of them have slept at my house. So there's certain guardrails. Like I'm not, you're not gonna get money from me. If you need a ride, it's gonna be to like, a group session.
A meeting.
Yeah. Well, a meeting. And so, but that's something I've just recently realized. Like, wow, I'm telling these people about this thing, this beautiful like mission of like helping others, but I have to remember like it's got a specific scope.
And the empathy is part of the problem, because people ask me all the time as a therapist, how do I not burn out? I'm listening to stories like the worst of humanity across the board in every possible arena. How do I not burn out? And if you ask any of my clients, they will tell you I have very deep love for all of the people that I work with, but I don't overextend in empathy, because first of all, that's not helpful. What people largely need, and this is true in the business world, in the recovery world, wherever, is not, oh, I feel your pain. Great. Now both of us are in the ditch. What I need is someone to witness me without trying to change it. Don't try to fix it. Just let it suck. That's like my new hashtag let it suck. Don't make it suck more than it does.
Oh my gosh.
Don't try to shine it up. Let it
like
suck.
Tracy. You sound like Tracy. She calls it the messy middle, and she loves it.
Yes. Yeah.
But like that's where the real magic happens is in
that's
this
the
messy
genius.
middle. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's creating space where that's okay. Like just the simple fact that it's okay to not be okay is critical.
And weird and very weird, because I used to work in the corporate world. I worked in advertising. Nothing like got my hackles up like the toxic positive cheerleader manager when everything was burning to the ground and we're all pulling 20-hour days. And it's like, hey, everybody, aren't we so lucky and happy to be here? Jazz hands. It's like what I wouldn't have given for someone to come in and just say, yeah, this is going to suck. Guess what? The next 6 weeks are going to be miserable. And scene. That's it. That's all I need. I didn't need you to feel with me. I didn't need you to feel bad for me. Don't fix it. Don't change it. Let it suck. And again, unless there is actual change to be made.
When you want to give me hope, tell me a realistic time frame. Like, yeah, it's going to be like this for 12 months.
That's right.
Okay.
That's powerful. Right. And it's weird. Nobody wants to do that.
And because here's what I think happens. And I'm just now realizing it as we're talking, because a big thing is acceptance, right? Acceptance is this like crazy part of all this. And again, that is a double-edged sword as well. Because if I overly accept, all of a sudden now I'm getting walked all over, and I'm not just accepting everybody. So again, it's like part of it is accepting my part. I don't have to accept everybody else, but I do have to accept my part in all this. And I think that's critical. But one of the things that I was just thinking about is this idea of like, it's not my job, it's not our job to create the space that makes acceptance easier for other people.
Say more.
Okay. So acceptance is one of those things that like I know how valuable it is. And so of course I want it for myself, and then I also want it for everybody else. So I want to help them accept. And sometimes that can hurt them by helping them too much to accept, because the magic of acceptance is me becoming okay with reality.
Like, and identifying your choices. We're circling around the serenity prayer language.
Because there's something to it. Because what's the opposite of serenity? Insanity, right? And the opposite of serenity also is probably some sort of sensation of stuck, right? So like I'm not usually stuck and serene. So as I'm thinking about this, I do a lot of work around. I mean, I believe that like some of the largest problems in the world can be solved with the simplicity of the serenity prayer, like on every level. But but the power of it is the acceptance around the things I can't change. But I can't get that acceptance if I don't know what I can't change.
And you can't get movement until,
if you're trying to hide that from me, you're not helping.
Yes. Me. Exactly. But then the other piece is, if I'm focusing on only accepting what I can't change, and my lens never, and this is where I see most people get stuck. My stuckness can't be changed. This can't be changed. This company, this environment, this economy, whatever.
Right.
But like, can we zoom focus over to what is available to change in the moment? You might not like your choices, you might not like them, but there's almost never a situation, almost never, not always, almost never a situation in which there are zero choices available. And if you're in that, you're probably in a war-torn country or in an oppressive system. But we focus.
Even then, that's a stretch. Even then, it's a stretch.
I mean, read Viktor Frankl. Like, there are almost always choice points somewhere to be had, but this focus on acceptance at the expense of choice is going to create helplessness, stuckness, and stagnation.
100%. And it's wild. I've always tell people, like, look, the quickest way to find yourself in this like insane stuck spot, right, and really miserable, is all you got to do is just have the courage to try to change all the things you can't, and then have the acceptance to not change anything except the things you can change. Just accept all those. Yep. And then have all the courage to change the things that you can't. And like, we laugh, but we wonder why people are stuck and all this other stuff. It's like, sometimes it's that effing simple.
Which is really annoying. And I say this in my keynotes, that like, when I learned that, I spent how many years destroying my body, destroying my life, burning things to the ground. And it's this freaking simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. It's not complicated. It's not. Where are your choices? That's where your genius lies, in your willingness to make choices, even no matter how small.
On every level. On every level. I mean, I tell you what, that's one of the most profound things. And because then what happens is, when I feel like I can impact something or make a difference, or what I'm going to do matters, like that little list of what I can change, like all of a sudden the rest of the stuff just makes sense. And it demystifies it. And it's funny how the most powerful things in this world are the simple things, but they also usually are not easy. And because it goes against my nature and my conditioning. So it goes against my nature plus my conditioning.
It's weird. It is so weird. And all of the research, all of the academics that have been, like, the meta-analysis of the data has shown that happiness is not a byproduct of achieving an outcome. Happiness is a byproduct of progress. If I am moving, if I can see change, if I can see that there's something happening on the way to the big goal, on the way to whatever the thing is.
I'm okay that I'm not there yet. Yeah. People don't have a problem accepting that they're not there yet if they know they're on the way to there.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you've looked at more of the meta on that than I have. I just intuitively have lived in a situation where I know when I'm happy and when I'm not. And I'm telling you, like, and sometimes like having the courage to change the things I can't is just an internal battle of just
Mhm.
obsessing about it. Like you and I, before we hit record, I was talking to you about a situation where, I have a client that went away and like the thing you want to do is think about, oh, what are all the things that I should have done differently? Or could I have done something differently? Or blah, 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 blah. Or man, what if they didn't leave? It's like, and that's a part of me mental gymnastics trying to like fight to control and change something that like is not changing. And on the flip side, once I get to acceptance, that's when the real magic can happen, because then I can be like, well, wait a second, what was this thing standing in the way of? Because my
Mhm.
experience, if like you're showing up all the way and you're in your genius and you get let go of something, or you break up with someone, or you end up ending a relationship, something, if that happens and you're aligned with yourself and you're in your genius, congratulations. Congratulations, because that's the thing that, and I've done this enough cycles now in my life where like I only stay in that bullshit for about a week at best, right? And like you caught me at the end of the week, I was like gonna see if I could like put the pity potty out, but it's like it's bullshit, especially because so this idea of so I have these concepts around believing in faith, like they're not the same thing. Belief is this thing like you can like make a choice to like believe in something. It's just a choice, but it's not. There's nothing backing that belief. Not really. When it becomes faith, it's after you've actually stepped out, done this work, got on the right road, aligned with yourself, and continually took these willing choices and did something with them, right? Then you turn around after some work has been done or some time has happened, and then all of a sudden I have something that I own. And that's
Mhm.
mine. It's my faith.
Yeah.
Believing I can borrow, faith you can't borrow. You can't just decide you have faith. Faith is something that happens after you do the work. And I have done the work enough and am aligned enough to know that like, okay, we're moving on. Look,
I
there's the
love that
thumbs
so
up.
much.
Yeah,
There
somehow
it
the
is.
AI knew to thumbs up me on that one. Way to
And
go,
I don't know
Claude.
who said this. I wish I knew so I could attribute credit when this comes out. If someone knows, please DM me and tell me, because I know our faith systems are very much aligned because we come from similar places. So again,
Yep.
assuming you've solved for safety and access, rejection, I love this saying so much. Rejection is the universe's protection against mediocrity. I'm going to say it again.
Ooh.
Rejection is the universe's protection against mediocrity. So you get let go of the thing,
Boom.
this or better, this or better. I don't like rejection. It doesn't feel good. And I'm with you. I'm going to let
Yes.
myself wah and bleed out for a little bit. But
Yeah.
like, if you actually have a faith system that can accommodate rejection as protection from mediocrity, then it's okay, that sucks, but this or better. And
There's
that's a
more.
really
Yeah.
important place.
And
Yeah.
it's a choice. Like you have a choice, and that choice becomes easier when you practice this over time.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I've got, let's say, 12 different things I can look at over the last 43 years and says like, okay, cool. I'm now predicting the future based on the past.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to do something similar to what I did in these situations where I trusted the process and I stepped into it. And now it's like, I can't even convince myself for that long that like, this is not going to be a thing. And then the other fun part is I have a lot of friends like you, Britt, who are like, get the fuck out of here. Like, like what? Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, there's no scenario where this is going to keep you down. And like, you're welcome. And like, shut the fuck up.
And I'm not validating
But
that. Just like, no.
yeah, if you're listening, Bailey, bleep all those out. But it's one of those things where it's just this incredible thing and so freeing too, and so limitless when you get into that mindset. Because you know, man, the rejection thing is good because it's so true. So I
It's
call
so
it this.
true.
My new like villain that is on my platform is called the stagnation spiral. And this
Ooh.
is something, oh yeah, I finally found the villain. I've been digging into the root cause. It's called the stagnation spiral. And it can be personal. It definitely is organizational. And here's the elements of the stagnation spiral. So if the stagnation spiral is a band, right? The lead singer is denial. The electric guitarist is status quo. The slap of a bass player is silos. right? The drummer is, let's see, rigid processes. And the jazz flautist is disengagement.
That's genius. I love it.
That is the stagnation spiral going on a world tour starting this fall. Oh, wait, it's already on tour everywhere you work. So here we are, the stagnation spiral. I just had the idea of the band thing, Britt. I'm so glad that we did this.
It's so good.
The band, wow, that just came to me. I knew the members. I just didn't know what instruments they played until this very moment. So anyway, that's the band. And so I started a different band to try to beat that band. It's a battle of the bands. And my band is called the Infinity Growth Loop, right? And the lead singer of the Infinity Growth Loop is getting honest about the problem, okay? And the lead guitarist is about overcoming that fear of failure that grips us and keeps us in the stagnation spiral. And then from there, the jazz flautist is what I call reimagining, the reimagination of the solution, right? That's the jazz flautist or flutist. I don't know how you say it, right? And the drummer is collaborating without boundaries, right? And the slap of the bass is actually tripling down on how all of this growth, all of this goodness is for a purpose, which is to serve the stakeholders, our customers, our members, whatever you call them in your industry, our colleagues and each other, and our community. Now, you notice I didn't say stockholders. I didn't say CEOs and say none of that. So that's the battle of the bands, right? But the reason why
I love that
our band wins every time is because we've got some very special juice. Our amps, our pedals, everything has the juice. It's like the flux capacitor. I told you about the flux capacitor. I don't think I showed it to you though. We must have
No, you didn't. I
okay.
love that.
So, all right, let's go back to the future for a second. You and I talked about this. Doc Brown hits his head on the toilet, 1955. Great. Okay, so the flux capacitor and my band, the Infinity Growth Loop, are 100% the same in the fact that they allow for something else to happen. For the flux capacitor, it's obviously time travel. The Infinity Growth Loop band is what makes continuous growth possible.
Oh, I love that so much.
Right?
I love it. The second you told it to me, it's still, it's genius.
But just like the flux capacitor, because you remember in 1955, Marty goes back to 1955 and he can't get back to 1985. Do you remember why?
Plutonium. No plutonium in 1955.
More specifically, it didn't have to be plutonium, but plutonium was what made the most sense in the 80s. It was the 1.21 gigawatts.
Gigawatts, right.
Without the 1.21 gigawatts, even though this makes time travel possible, it was worthless. And that's exactly how the Infinity Growth Loop is. It's an amazing framework. It all makes sense on paper. We're all here for it, except for one problem. There's a reason it's not an infinity loop. There's a reason it's not continuous. And it's not what most people think, right? The reason it's not continuous is because they've underestimated the 1.21 gigawatts, which just so happens, right, to be the collective genius unleashed within the organization. That is how you fuel the Infinity Growth Loop. And the best way to create those conditions, to let that collective genius out, is to love your weird.
Amen.
There you go.
Take me to church.
I've been telling you. But, it's interesting because that piece, and again, lead singer of Stagnation Spiral, going back to the battle of the bands, denial. It's so big. And that's why, unfortunately, like I'm still dreaming of a world, maybe it's the new world of work, where we don't have to go to bottom or get full rejected or get fired or break up or go bankrupt or become a drug addict to find the Infinity Growth Loop. I'm still imagining a world where that exists, but I will be honest with you, Britt, I'm not 100% sure it does exist. Now, what I will tell you is that it doesn't have to hurt as much. Like I don't go to bottom anymore, but without a little rejection, without a little pain, without some sting, there's a reason we like the Stagnation Spiral band so much. Okay.
Which is why when you know the brain science of what comfort and ease actually do in the change process and how toxic lack of pain actually is. Like if If you had no pain sensors on your body, you would
Mm-hmm.
not know when a stove was hot. You
Of
would not
course.
know when a knife is short. There's a disease called leprosy, which is a nerve condition where you
Mm.
have no sense of pain. And because you have no sense of pain, you end up in a really, really unpleasant, unfortunate situation. But that's
Yes.
what leprosy is.
Yeah.
When we get into a state of emotional leprosy or a state of
Mm.
business leprosy, it's the absence of the discomfort. And I know you have all the kids, like you just have all of them.
I have 6.
So
Yeah, most
I
people
know
don't.
you have all of them. And I know you take this approach too. If you don't let and I was a play therapist for years at the beginning of my career. If you do not let kids experience discomfort, there's no growth. And then they have the learned helplessness of, I didn't, therefore I can't, so I'm not. And that turns into cycles of companies and groups of adults who have the sense of, I can't, therefore I won't, so whatever.
Yes. Oh.
Discomfort and pain are catalysts for all the, again, like you said, it doesn't have to be as hard. Rock bottom just means wherever you're done doing the
Oh,
things
that's
you've
right.
always
Yeah.
done.
Luckily, as we get older, like, the road it narrows, as they say. And
Yes,
so we end up with a situation where I just, my tolerance for pain is a lot lower. And that's a good thing. Because
that's a good thing.
that's what keeps me making the jump, this unnatural jump into the loop. It requires a leap into the loop. You have to have a way to hijack the spiral and get into the loop. And most of that is all boils back down to fear.
And denial. And
Yes. Well,
denial of what's
denial is
true.
the wake up call, right?
Right,
Denial, like the rejection, that's the wake up call. The
right.
problem is most people have been taught, okay, wait, we're going down. The S curve is down now for growth. So what do? Well, we've been number one for the last 50 years. And so this is what we do at this company. So somebody new comes in, we're like, that's not how we do it. And then things get a little weird. What are we going to do? It goes a little down. What are we going to do? Oh, we're just going to go back to what we used to do. And if it's not working, we're going to do more,
Mm-hmm.
right? When the answer is actually less. I call this brute force, and it's what's killing everyone in corporate America right now. It is the root cause.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the work that we are called to do, is help create a space where people, organizations can have all their KPIs, right? Oh, revenue growth. Let me guess. Profitability on the balance statement. Hold on. Let me guess. Raw retention for your customers. Oh, less churn on the employees. Are we good? Yeah. Are we good? Did we get all the KPIs and OKRs? Great. Now that we got that out of the way, how are we going to do it without all the dead bodies behind us? That becomes the question. Well, how do we do this without dead bodies behind us? That's the new world of work. That's
It
the
is.
work that we're doing, and it can't be the same. Continuous growth
No,
does not come from doing the same. It comes from doing something
it
different.
can't be from normal. When we double down on normal, we
Yes,
get stuck. We stay stuck. That's why I love all
yes,
the
it's a
weird stuff.
recipe for disaster, and it's driven by this mindset that has become the
Mm-hmm.
norm, which is very, very I hate to say this, but like kind of macho, ego driven, usually male, sorry guys, driven thing. All right. This is the school weird. So whatever, everything goes, sue us. But this is the facts. This is the world we live in. And like, I've been amazed just how many people feel like they have to go along to get along so they can like have enough money to survive and take care of their family.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of going along to getting along, and everybody on the top is like, oh, things are going great. Look at this, and it's like, what? No, things are not going great. And they're about to get weird, the Shakespeare weird, because there's a new species that's now been unleashed onto the playground. Okay, so as if we didn't already have enough of a stagnation spiral happening because of all the different cataclysmic things that could go wrong. Now there's a new species to take your job.
AI is coming for us.
Yeah, and look, AI is not here yet. It's not here yet. Yeah, it's here. It's not, but it's not yet. But like, don't fool yourself. Like, the people that want to keep humanity in work will eventually not have a choice. They will.
Well, the thing about AI too that I'm not hearing in that discussion at all is like, yeah, we're going to have robot baristas and hologram therapists and whatever. But despite our march towards the future, Human brains are the same. The brain in your head right now is the same biological brain as cave people. So we can have all of the tech, all of the advancements, all of the technological innovation, but human brains don't change. They don't update. Imagine if you were still using the same cell phone from 1997 that you had. Our brains do not update. So alongside all of these changes that we're making, we got to know we're still like humans right now for the time being are still in charge of things.
Yes.
And so if we neglect to look under the hood, then things are going to go south very quickly.
Well, that's the thing. And I've talked a lot about this as far as like, if I'm so worried that a machine or even a person's going to take my job, maybe I'm doing the wrong job. That's number one. Like, am I even doing the right job? Where am I even at with all of this? And that's why I actually did a TED Talk about how love your weird is the compass for navigating AI revolution, which is a pretty bold statement, but it's true.
It's like, true.
Look, at the end of the day, because like, look, this is coming. This is coming whether you like it or not, because it just does math better than us. It just does certain things better than us. And even though the powers that be, maybe they don't want to right now, the problem is the obsession with money. Everything comes down to that there's one God we pray to, and it's far, far, far from any religious God. It is money. That is the God America prays to, and in turn, the world prays to. Period.
We're gonna have to do a part 2. Like, we need another hour to go into that one. So let's stay tuned, people.
Yeah, don't worry. We whatever. Bailey can chop this up. I don't care. But anyway, let me just finish this thing. So here's the thing, though, is that like that's the God that we pray to. This is the whole thing about the New World of Work, and I understand that God. I have prayed to that God, and I understand the trappings of that God and the world that we live in. I understand it. I've lived in it. I've lived out of it. I understand it. Okay. However, as long as that's the case, which you can expect that to be the case for as long as humans are alive, that it will continue to be the God that they pray to, then we have to figure out how to let them have their God and not have the dead sacrifices. That's the key. Like, what if they could have their God, they could have their money, and we didn't have to have dead carcasses, and there was still a place where humans aren't left behind? Because what will happen is that the margins and the HR and the upkeep on a friggin' robot versus a human, it's just not worth the squeeze anymore, boo-boo. Like, I mean, dude, this HR is so easy with 1,000 robots. I mean, this HR has never been easier. And it's like, and they don't talk back. They talk, they do what you want them to do. And you don't have to spend all this money on conferences. All their conferences are virtual. But it's going to happen. It's the margins to continue to serve the God of money will require this new species to take the place of many, many, many jobs. Now, good news is there's going to be a bunch of new jobs created with this, at least for the next decade. So then where does that leave us? Is reskilling the answer, or is spending the energy to pulling out our genius the answer?
That one.
That one.
It's that one.
I think it's a balance, but make damn sure you're not just reskilling. Make sure you don't think that knowledge is going to get you there, because they said knowledge is power. Knowledge is power was true before Google search. And it was definitely true before ChatGPT. And it will definitely be even more true before whatever blank, blank, blankety blank they create next and name. Right?
It's true.
It's true. It's not enough. That's why over and over again, I'm like, read the room. And you can go back to like one of our favorite geniuses, friggin' Einstein. Right? And even he said the same thing I say, which is that imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Our genius is more powerful than knowledge. Mm-hmm. Who we are at the core, our supernatural quality, our weird, is more powerful than knowledge. Full stop.
I love it. Information is good. Innovation is better. Transformation is best.
Yeah, that's right. And whatever she just said. But definitely, information alone is like, it's crazy. But we've been taught this. It's like, oh, and maybe you and I are spoiled because we've had so much information. I mean, you're a scientist and everything else. So I think you're a scientist, right? Are you a scientist?
Not really, but like
a self-proclaimed scientist. Okay, good. Then we're in the same boat. I'm a scientist too. I'm an inventor, scientist, astronaut, cowboy, TV preacher at the core. So yeah, we're scientists.
Sure.
Okay, Britt. So, like you said, we're going to do this again in person. So, if you liked me and Britt's show, awesome. There's another one in person coming before the launch of our next book in the spring. So, be looking for that. If you didn't like us, please unsubscribe now because it's only going to get worse.
You've been warned.
Yeah, that's your disclaimer. That's it. So, all right, Britt. Besides Googling Britt Frank, which means I can find you anywheres and checking your hashtags, is there any special place we need to know to find you?
Find me on Instagram at Britt Frank or my website, scienceofstuck.com, or just Google me. I'm not hard to find.
There you go. Britt, I knew this was going to be good, but it exceeded my expectations, especially for an after lunch podcast. I mean, wow.
Right?
I
I
mean,
mean, really?
in the realm of after lunch podcast, that was a good one. Britt, thank you so much. I can't wait to do this again. You're a true gem in this world, and I'm so proud to call you a friend and proud member of the New World of Work.
Ah, thank you.
Here we go. And for all of you listening and watching, this has been another episode of The School of Weird. Until next time, everyone be good.